punch in my heart. Baby, let me be. 'Cause you don't care. Oh, baby, please set me free.
Welcome to RiderTV. You're with Cheryl Lee, and I'd like to welcome to the Gov, the hallowed halls of the Gov. Finally, at last, 3/5 of the Boogiemen. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. The Boogiemen, Dave Lloyd on drums, Mike Hutton on guitar, Richard McDonald on keys, Ross on bass, and
Ronnie.
Yeah.
Don't get that one
don't
wrong.
tell
There'll
him
be
I
trouble.
stuffed
There'll be
up
trouble
his
there.
name.
Cosmida on bass.
I told you I couldn't read my own writing, didn't I, without my glasses? And Steve Brown, well, what do you do?
Not an awful lot. I just come along and sing and strum a bit of acoustic guitar.
Awesome. Well, let's start by talking a little bit about the exciting things that are coming up. First up, you've got one original album out there, Katie's Lane. Congratulations, 10 great songs. We had the girls, Nat and Deb, on BVs. But we also have a scoop about something about a new album.
Yeah, no, we have. So this collective, the Boogiemen, are doing the new Back Valley Scribes record again. And now really it goes back quite a long time, and there's a whole backlog of songs that Steve and I wrote, and then Mike, Steve and I have written a bunch of songs as well. And now we're going into this point where we all got together last weekend for a couple of days in the juke joint and laid some tracks down, either parts or complete, for a few new songs on the album. We've got about too many songs for the next album so far, so it's a lovely luxury for us. So we've just got to finish all those off and then be selective about what we put on there to try and do that. The last one was a really ballad-based album, which we really enjoyed doing, right? Because it sort of kind of suits Steve a bit without going into the really heavy-duty stuff. But this one's going to be probably a bit, well, it'll be more up-tempo. Not sure it'll be bluesier, but it's certainly going to be a bit more of an up-tempo CD or record or download or whatever the hell you do these days, Cheryl.
From all your usual places.
Yeah, that's right.
So, now I'm easily confused. So, can you just talk us through a little bit about the Boogiemen versus the Black Valley Scribes?
Well, I'm going to talk again, so you can edit all this out if you like. But Back Valley Scribes is really the last CD was called the Back Valley Scribes. There's a place down in the south coast where Steve and I originally started playing with the first iteration of the Boogiemen with Balecki and Sandy, and we used to be called the Back Valley Knuckle Draggers. That's what we called ourselves, right? So the Back Valley Scribes is us writing.
Right. Very
but
nice.
what it is, it's a bit of a publishing handle for us to be able to. This one was recorded by the Boogiemen. There might be times when it's just Steve and I, or just Mike and Steve, or whatever, or other guests come into play. So the Back Valley Scribes can be kind of like plug for these guys, the Butcher Bird Collective, or those guys, where there's a monocle or a handle on a range of artists that can perform under that. So therefore it gives a position on a Facebook page or Instagram or somewhere where all this collective comes
so we can
together.
find you.
Yeah, so we can find whatever's coming in under that.
Advertising 101.
Yeah, it is. And Steve and I have got all these tunes going back 25 years that we'd like to publish under Back Valley Scribes that may not include many of the Boogiemen guys. It might include a few of us, but we really want to do an acoustic album actually at the moment with a whole bunch of things, just really Steve playing acoustic and singing.
So you had a few, I think you had at least 3 launches in 2023 of the first album at Three Brothers Arms and the Weedy and other pubs.
Yes.
Anything in the works for the launch of this one as yet, or is it a bit early?
Once we get it done, we'll probably do the same kind of thing again. There's only a handful of really good venues to play in these days. From where I stand, I a lot of venues are happening, but they're not necessarily all that musical or ideal situations. We're certainly not going to wind up in those places with the big footy screen above your head, We haven't done anything like that for 30 years, but that's a shame that even happens. It should be illegal. You know,
Yeah.
But there are some really good venues. You know, you mentioned
Well, you mentioned the Duke joint.
Yeah, well, for me, that's the perfect sound thing. It's a nice listening audience. I like it there. And then the Three Brothers Arms is a little more funky. I have a lot of good fun there. And I have even more fun at the Semaphore Workers Club,
Yeah, that's right.
which is a different soundscape again. But, you know, they're all different things, but I'm pretty comfortable in all those places. And I like doing the theatre shows, you know, when we do this big thing, the Cocker thing, you know, the tribute thing. It's all good fun.
Yeah.
And as long as it's good fun, we'll just keep on plugging away. The recording side of it, the creative side of it, and that's what the Back Valley Scribes is about. It just gives us another avenue, and I hope that one day we do get all these tunes that we've written over the years, because there's some cracking tunes.
They really are.
Yeah.
He's become quite a good lyric writer, quite a good poet, so it's been good.
Well, there's no secret that it has been tough for venues all over Adelaide, and I think you're with the Duke joint.
I own the Duke joint,
Yeah.
along with Greg Button.
So that got a bit hairy for a while. All good
Well,
now?
it still is, and I'd like to say that Mike's a lawyer, and Mike's instrumental in helping what we're doing and trying to combat the challenge that's been put on us with this lease arrangement that our landlord's not happy with. We're not alone. There's a lot of venues that are facing the financial pressures that come with insurances, which are multiple, varied, same thing, but it's expensive to do this stuff these days. There's not a huge return in it for us all. It's more love than money. You know, thankfully there's a little bit of money to pay the bills and put some in our pocket. But I really do want to thank Mike and Lynch Meyer and for the amount of work that they've put in so far to help us wade through this, Mike.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. No,
And
thank you.
Well, we wish you all the best with that going forward, because it's such a wonderful venue. We'd hate to lose you.
it is a good venue.
It is amazing though, when the going gets tough, you know, the South Australian music fraternity get together and back, you know, they've saved a few things of recent times. But I hope it's all smooth sailing going forward. So what's important is get out when you can, support local music, and I'll see you down the front.
Absolutely.
Always. Talking of, we've got our Fringe coming up. So you guys were award winners in the Fringe 2023. You guys are appearing in this Fringe too.
Yeah, we've been played the last few years at the what's called GC Adelaide. They book the Arts Theatre and they put on a bunch of different tribute bands, for want of a bit of a term, and we're playing Saturday night this time, the 8th of March, and it's a great venue. It's air conditioned, it's licensed. You know, if it's a blisteringly hot day, you're going to be comfortable, which is nice. A lot of Fringe venues are a bit sweaty under the armpits, but this one's a cracker, and it's a lovely stage and good production. From Adelaide Backline.
A good bunch of guys that run that thing.
A bunch of guys that run it, that's right. Alan Rosewarne's in there heading up the whole thing. And it's a terrific event. We really enjoyed doing it. Cocker Show's an 11-piece band. We've got horns, we've got Paul White on Hammond, you know, the primo Hammond player, I think, in Australia. We've got some fantastic singers, you know, Nat and Deb, and horns, the Heart Attack horns. We've got
Robbie and Gio.
And Robbie, and of course then there's the Boogiemen underpinning that whole thing.
And Julian on percussion.
And Julian
How lucky
Perotta,
Julian Perotta playing percussion, right?
Which is fantastic. Really nice to have a dedicated percussionist, and Julian's very musical, which is great. No, we just have a ball, and people. I know there are a lot of people out there that love Joe Cocker, and they were very sad when he passed, and a lot of them didn't have the opportunity to see Joe live, and some of Joe's gigs were a bit hit and miss. But this is a very authentic, gritty, and powerful show. Which you shouldn't miss if you like Joe, and even if you haven't really heard much Joe, you'd be surprised how much there is. Come along to the gig and hear some of his great tunes.
And there's no backing tracks and there's no drum machines, so it's real. That's what I like.
The real deal.
It's real.
It is. It's authentic as hell.
That's right.
So if you'd like to hear Adelaide's, you know, the cream of Adelaide's musical talent, get yourself along there, get onto Fringe Ticks, and again, I shall see you down the front. But,
Unchain my heart, unchain my heart.
Can I bring something up? Is that okay? So,
Sure.
you know, like...
We can always cut it out.
Yeah, well, that's right. Probably get ready to edit the next piece. Steve and we did a gig, the Boogiemen, way back, 1993 in this pub, and sold the joint out, and it was fabulous, and it was Mad Dogs and Boogiemen right back then. And Steve and I spoke about it quite a bit then, and, you're the guy behind it all in that regard, so, why Joe?
I guess that was the first singer at that time, and it was really Mad Dogs and Englishmen. I can get it right down to seeing Crimea River on an old black and white TV on Happening 70,
Yeah.
They used to show those clips,
So that was your defining moment?
Yeah, I was well aware of the Beatles and the Stones and all the pop music of that period. I was 6 years old in London during Beatlemania, so all my older cousins had all those records, so I heard all that stuff. But for some reason, it was probably the Joe Cocker thing. It was really strange. At the Rock and Roll Circus, a huge band, Leon Russell with the Holy Trinity and the top hat. I hadn't seen anything like that before. I don't think the whole world had. It was really something, and that gospel-flavoured approach, like the old Ray Charles approach, it kind of reinvented in the 70s. And I guess at a time when people had forgotten about Ray Charles, but it's certainly a link to Ray Charles. And then when you discover him and all those other people where this music came from, Otis Redding, even Leonard Cohen, I discovered through that Mad Dogs and Englishmen album, So, that opened it all up for me. And I'd be 12 years old trying to emulate that sound. It was like I was a disciple there for a couple of years. I lost friends over it too, But, I
remember you saying to me that you were in front of the mirror when you were a kid, right?
Yeah.
About that era, and opened your mouth and sang, Cry Me a River or something. You were amazed at what happened, were you?
That I could actually almost imitate that. He was a fine singer, He was one of those guys that, he didn't even have to hit the high notes. He knew what he was going for, and he'd put himself through this physical and emotional, journey just to get these songs out.
Well, it's been written that if people close their eyes in the room when you guys are playing, that it actually sounds like Joe Cocker's in the room.
Well, that's a nice thing to hear, but I mean, there's only one. It's like, there's people that do Ray Charles songs, and people say, oh, he sounds just like Ray Charles, but he doesn't.
No, but you're not trying to be Joe Cocker, are you? You just happen to sound a lot like him.
The easy thing for me is that I love all those songs, and when we decided to do this thing in the first place, I didn't really need to rehearse because I knew the words, I knew the songs, and they were just in my head all my life,
It's in your DNA, I reckon.
It's been an easy one,
Yeah. So, Dave, you're going to ask my next question for me?
I'm sorry, Cheryl. Sorry, my apologies.
That's all right, because we know a little bit about the band, and we encourage you all to get out and see them, as I said, but we just want to find out a little bit about you guys each as people and members of the band. So we might start down that end with you, Mike. When did you know that music was your thing, like?
Well, I was a pretty shy child, and I lived in a street in Ross Trevor where there were other musicians around my age, which was great, and they were getting started, and they sort of took me along for the ride, and I decided to play guitar. I started playing when I was 10, and being in a band is a nice some camaraderie, and it also has sort of team elements to it as well, and I really enjoyed it. And from the age of 10, that's just what I love doing. I realised pretty early that I was never going to make a proper living out of it unless I kind of left the state, and I like living here too much, so I didn't do that. And I probably didn't have the talent anyway, so some of my friends left and became full-time musicians, and that was fine. I chose a different path, but I've always loved music, and I've been playing ever since. I mean, I gave up a very short time when my kids were really little, and even then I was still playing for them when they went to bed. But I just love it, and going, first thing I ever saw live was Jesus Christ Superstar at the Festival Theatre.
Oh, wow.
And I remember peering over into the orchestra pit and seeing all these glowing red lights, which I now know were Fender amplifiers. And, I can remember seeing and hearing the spinning Leslie boxes down there in the pit. It was a tremendous production.
Fantastic.
And it really rocketed me and enthused me into playing. And so I've been playing live since just after I started playing, and I absolutely love it.
I bet there wasn't one guitar pedal in that whole orchestra pit, Mike.
Probably one. It might have been a wah pedal, because if you remember, Dave, there is a
yeah,
wah.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah. So that would have been it. It would have been straight into Fender amps turned up loud.
Yeah, beautiful.
And why guitar?
Well, they kind of needed a guitar player in that band, and it was just portable. It was easy. My parents couldn't afford and probably wouldn't have bought a piano, so it just seemed like the one instrument that was going to work for me.
Yeah.
I took lessons at school and learned classical guitar, and then did a little bit of jazz, and I just sort of do it all those things.
And with a guitar, you can chuck it over your shoulder and hitchhike down the highway.
Exactly.
You know,
That's right. Yeah.
an easy thing to do and play anywhere.
You can use it as a pillow if you have to.
Yeah.
Can sleep in the case.
That's right. You can. Oh, so Dave, how about you? Your first spark of recognition?
My grandfather bought my sister a piano back in the day, right back in the day. I reckon I was about 7 years old. And then somehow or other we came across another piano that ended up in the shed. And I ended up playing all the black notes on that because that seemed to be logical. So I played piano quite badly for a few years, never wanted to take a lesson on it. And then my sister went out with a drummer. And I ended up asking if I could borrow his drum kit. I think I was 14. That ended up going in the shed in just this row of drums until Nat came around and said, oh, you got to put that there, and that there. And I just fell in love with drums, just loved them. And then I play a bit of guitar and still play a bit of piano. And really from there, I ended up, from 14, I think my first live gig wasn't until I was about 21, I don't think. Lots of stuff, you know, but no proper performance. And as soon as I did that, and you know, as any muso will tell you, as soon as you get that first round of applause, yeah, that's it, you're gone, you're hooked, you know. So yeah, loved it, still do. Ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, we're so glad that the three of you are, or the five of you are. And so when did your hairbrush become a mic?
Yeah.
I was in my first band when I was 15, which was a pretty atrocious little rock and roll band, and we were trying to play Chuck Berry tunes and Bo Diddley tunes and Little Richard, you know. But my next band was a little more advanced, and a couple of those guys went on to become incredible musicians. I was never talented. I only ever picked up a guitar because I figured if I've never got a band, I'm going to have to back myself somehow.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we got into Bob Dylan, so we'd be, you know, how many roads must them, you know, all the Dylan songs. I was a busker for years, you know. And my first gig, what I'd consider a major gig, was at our high school gymnasium at a lunchtime show that was put on by Hoadley's, you know, way back.
Guys that did the Battle of the Bands.
That's right, yeah.
And the first band that they put on was a band called Keystone Angels.
Oh, wow.
Right, so that was my first in front of a full gymnasium, and we went down really well because we knew all the kids out there, right?
Yeah.
And Keystone Angels then, they were just doing Chuck Berry tunes.
With a washboard.
And wearing black leather. You know, Doc Neeson was pretty impressive. And I remember after the show thinking, how do they do it? You know, and he's sitting in his sports car giving autographs to our girlfriends, you know. It's like, what? You know, but he was, yeah. But, you know, obviously they went on. So that was, I've never forgotten that, you know. So that's where it began. There goes my phone. I did forget to turn it off. It won't go for long. You'll have to edit that out.
We'll ignore that.
But that's kind of where it started. I had a layoff.
I think it's the Brewster Brothers.
Yeah.
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 You're talking about us.
I have chatted to those guys in recent years. You know, they don't remember me, but I remember them very well. But that's where it started. I went to London for a while. I was involved in a band there, but I just become a working guy, you know, a chef. And then I didn't get back into music until I returned to Australia. And then I just bought an acoustic guitar and spent maybe 10 years as a busker, you know, just singing on the streets. And
So you're clearly doing it for the passion and the love of it.
No, he was doing it for the money. He was doing it for the money.
Basic survival, you know. It's one thing to be out of a university and you know you've got all this money from a wealthy family to buy all the equipment you need and study music at the con. As you know, that's one road, but my road was it was never going to happen, and it was basically a survival thing. But it did take me to a lot of places. I met some incredible people, and I got to play in bars and just I guess that's probably how it started. You know, Blind Willie McTell used to be a busker too. You know, even though those guys recorded, never made any money. Certainly didn't have a fan base, but they were basically street musicians. You know.
Yeah.
Quite something.
Yeah, Steve would work in the Riverland and then play for his ride home and then stop at a pub and get a
Sing
meal,
for your supper.
you know, sing for your supper.
Truly.
Well, that did that for years, didn't you? All that sort of stuff.
I did.
Unchain my heart, unchain my heart.
Welcome back. You're with Cheryl Lee on RiderTV, and we're with the Boogiemen. Well, some of the Boogiemen, anyway. And I just wanted to ask you fellas one last question. I know rock and roll's not like it used to be in the 80s, but...
The 80s? I didn't even have an 80s.
What, you can't remember?
Bypassed it.
The real rock and roll was the 50s.
Oh, that's right. But I want to know what is the non-negotiable on each of your riders. Is there something that you have to have or I'm not going on?
No, I just need 240 volts.
Yeah. And you're raring to go. No special wine or cheese or...
No.
No, nothing for me either, other than
Tonic water.
just a reasonably professional kit if it's not my own, you know, something that's going to hold together. And you know, I'll tell you what is a really important thing: fold back. So we can enjoy the performance on a stage. If you go and play a pub and I can't hear him sing, he can always hear me play drums. There's no point in it because you're not immersed in the music then, you know. And that's one of our prides of what we do, is that it's all about music on stage. You're in a performance. They play great because they're enjoying their performance, and the crowd get off on that because they see
the Murray Delta Juke joint. That's what
we do.
We can hear what we're doing, every nuance, every note. It's beautiful.
Great acoustically. So you don't need, you know, blue M&Ms in the green room before you go on?
I like a couple of whiskies is always good.
Yeah.
And the bars I play in, they're all forthcoming with that.
Very good.
It's pretty cool.
I like to hear
Just about anything else if we were going to partake, but we're a bit old now, you know.
We're old and sensible now. Not really, but just tell them that. All right, gentlemen, I am so happy to have had this time with you guys in the Gov and for a beautiful chat today, and we wish you all the best with the new album.
Thank you, fellas. Wonderful.
Cheers, guys.
The Fringe Show.
Yeah, the Fringe Show, March the 8th.
Yep.
Queen's Theatre.
No, Arts Theatre.
Arts Theatre.
Angus Street.
And for all the Boogiemen / Black Valley / news, which best place to find you?
Workers Club in a couple of weeks.
Next Friday.
Next Friday. We'll
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, Valentine's Day.
That'll be a doozy.
Yeah.
But where can we find you on the internet to find all that out?
We've got a Boogiemen...
Facebook,
On, what's it called? Boogiemen SA?
Yeah.
The Boogiemen
Facebook.
SA on Facebook. You'll find us. We do have a Back Valley Scribes page, but we're not going to launch that properly, believe it or not, yet. We've got some videos we're working on at the moment, and we'll do that sort of properly at some stage. What's properly these days? Social media, but anyway.
Yeah. So to find out where you can catch these guys in a town near you, hop onto their Facebook page and I'll see you down the front.
Unchain my heart, baby, let me be. 'Cause you don't care. Oh, baby, please set me free. Unchain